And welcome to another episode of Your Next Favorite Movie. I'm your host, Josh G. And today I'm joined by Ben Scrivens, owner and founder of Fright-Rags Clothing Company. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Why don't you go ahead and tell everyone a little bit about Fright-Rags? I can tell you this. Anybody who's interviewed me has probably seen me in a Fright-Rag shirt. Surprisingly, I don't have Michael Myers for this episode. So I just had to go with my Wolfman's Got Nards.
Nice.
I
Hey,
have
that'll work.
I have three Monster Squad shirts. But yeah, go ahead and tell them about Fright-Rags.
I started Fright-Rags back in 2003, and it's just, I wanted to make some horror t-shirts, and we've expanded in the last almost 18 years now into, horror t-shirts and lounge pants and socks, and we even do some toys and other collectibles and stuff. So really, it's just, our brand is just about making some kick-ass horror stuff, really. Like, I love horror movies and grateful that we have a business that can do that.
Absolutely. And I completely agree. I'll tell you, my favorite thing to lounge in, my Silence of the Lambs tri-blend shirt
Mm,
with my House of a Thousand Corpses lounge pants, because those things are so super comfy. That is
thanks.
like my favorite lounging thing ever.
Yeah, I'm pretty much living in my lounge pants these days, and you're right. Honestly, the tri-blends are some of my favorites. Like, I will toss one of those on, and you're right. It's, actually, this shirt I think is a tri-blend. It's not a Fright-Rags. It's actually just a blank T-shirt, but it's, again, I put it on today because I knew it was just going to be showing out today. So.
Yeah, awesome. All right. So for your movie, we're going back to 1978, John Carpenter's Halloween. So when did you first see this film?
I saw this film on Friday, October 30th, 1981. I was 4 years old. And
Little young.
yeah, so basically we were at a my parents and my I'm the youngest of four. We were at a family friend's place. They actually ran this deli, and they lived like in the back and above the deli. And we were hanging out in their like living room area. My parents, I think, were playing cards with their friends, and my brothers and sister were off playing with the other kids. I was just too young, and I was just kind of sitting there hanging out, and I really just wanted to go home because I was bored. And my mom, just like any other 80s mom, was like, just go watch TV. Just go watch TV. So I plopped down in front of the TV and turned on, and it must have been 8 o'clock or whatever time it aired, and it came on. It was the network premiere of Halloween. Obviously, I didn't know this at the time. I was four.
Right.
But it's funny because now I've talked to people about this, and a lot of my friends and other people I've talked to, like, I saw that same like premiere. I think it was on NBC Friday Night Film. In fact, I have a file of that broadcast with the commercials and everything, which is pretty cool.
Oh, that is awesome.
Yeah. So yeah, I literally sat down and I watched the entire film because even though I was four, and your memory gets spotty at four. In fact, I used to think it was on Halloween night that I saw it, but it was actually the night before because I have the TV guide. I bought it on eBay. But anyway, I remember the TV scenes that were, put in for that specific broadcast. I remember the closet scene, so I sat and watched the whole thing.
Wow. So obviously at four you weren't ready. So about how long did it take for you to realize this was your favorite film? Like this was
Um,
it.
excuse me. I think, that obviously was my first horror film, and I don't know how long it took for me. It's weird because, again, being four, I think it almost feels like it's always been my favorite movie forever. Um,
Okay.
I mean, before that, there wasn't much that I had seen. I mean, there was like Popeye. I remember renting and Beta, and I know I went to the theater a couple times. My first movie I ever saw in the theater was Empire Strikes Back. Um, and I remember watching E.T. in 1982, and I mean, that's probably my second favorite movie of all time. But I know when I saw Halloween soon after, I wanted to see more of that. I was like, are there more movies? And that's just right around the time when home video started popping up, and my dad had bought a Betamax because Rochester, where I live, they were like a testing ground between Beta and VHS, so you could
Okay.
so we got Beta, and we'd have to go look for movies for Beta and whatever. And I would always look at the covers, just like we all did back in the day. And, I always wanted to see a mask. Like, is it a bunch of kids going somewhere with a guy in a mask killing them? Sign me up, like a slasher. So I guess it's weird to say, but it's always been, I feel like it's just always been my favorite movie.
Wow, that is awesome. So, on the off chance someone has not seen the original Halloween, just give a brief synopsis of what this is about.
Well, first of all, come out from under your rock, and but it's about a boy who's 6 years old in 1963, and he kills his older sister for no reason. He doesn't talk. He just walks into a house, kills her, and he's put into a mental institute. And 15 years later, he breaks out and he returns home to his hometown of Haddonfield, Illinois, which is a fictitious town. And he basically sees a young Laurie Strode, played by Jamie Lee Curtis, and follows her and proceeds to kill her friends and try to kill her. And he wears a white mask, and he's awesome as hell.
There you go. And there's an awesome crazy doctor after him, Dr. Loomis.
Yes, exactly. There's a doctor that is knows that he is pure evil and needs to stop him at all costs, even though everybody else is just like, what? He's fine. I mean, not really, but yeah.
Right. So I don't like to go into too many details just because I keep these short and in case someone hadn't seen them. We don't have time to get into all the sequels, but for this purpose, what is your favorite sequel of the sequels? We'll say that.
Okay, it's usually changes between one of two of them, and I don't count 3, by the way. I love Halloween 3. I love it to death, but I don't count it because it's the anomaly, right?
Right.
So I would probably have to say Halloween 4 edges out Part 2 to me. Those are the two that I always go back and forth.
Okay.
And the reason I love Part 2, and I watched that a lot as a kid, because when I was a kid, there were no other Halloween movies except for 1, 2, and 3. And when you were a kid of the 80s, you didn't count Halloween 3 because it didn't have Michael Myers. So at the time, when I was young, I didn't like it. I grew up and I loved it, but right in the middle of the 80s, I did not like it. So I could only have Halloween 1, Halloween 2, Halloween 1, Halloween 2, because there was no other Michael Myers films. It was not like Jason where they made a film every year. With Halloween 4, it was the first one I had seen in the theater, and I was 11. And that was actually on October 30th, 1988. It was a Sunday night. My brother took me, and I'll never forget that. And, the girl in the film, Danielle Harris, who plays Jamie Lloyd, she plays a younger character, but her actual age in real life was my age. We're the same age. And I love that movie. I mean, it's, maybe if I were this age seeing it for the first time at 1988, I'd see its flaws. But I think it's incredibly well written. It really feels like the original, but still sort of modern. It's 10 years later. And I just love it so much. So it's a mixture of nostalgia, but I also think it holds up. Like Part 5, I love for almost purely nostalgic reasons, not because it's a great movie. It's because it's like one of those guilty pleasures, if you will. Not that I really subscribe to those, but I just love it for what it is. But Halloween 4, I think I genuinely love because it's a great movie and it's nostalgic.
Okay. Yeah, I revisited the whole series last year while reading Taking Shape.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
So I would read the chapter and watch the movie corresponding.
That's what I did.
And I have a much better appreciation for Halloween 4. And 5, I don't have the nostalgia, so I don't rank it as high, although it does have one of the best tension scenes in the whole series in that laundry chute. I will give it credit for that.
Yes, absolutely. That they really did a great job, especially considering she was in an actual laundry chute and they were stabbing at her. So I mean, it's not like a CGI or some weird cutaway thing. It's like, and yeah, you're right. That was palpable in that thing.
Right. So let's say you could go back. Halloween. We're going to do the Halloween 2018 method, but without Halloween 2018 existing. Let's say you get to have your own sequel, but we're not going to go 40 years later. You actually get to do a follow-up. Early 80s, late 70s, however you want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
What do you want to do?
So this is basically like right after Halloween 1, right?
Right. You can do the same night, or you can do however you want to do it.
Oh my God, that's really hard. Well, I think it would be a little bit of a blend. I think my personal feeling, as much as I love Halloween 2, and of course it spawned all the other sequels with the fact that they're brother and sister, that always bothered me as a kid because that just was not in the original movie, with the exception of the TV scenes.
Right.
It always bothered me because it was like, it doesn't fit. It does not fit. You can't just add this in later. Now, again, I love Halloween 2 and all the sequels and stuff, but bothered me. And that's why I love 2018. So in that sense, I would have taken out the brother sister component. But obviously, we're not talking about 2018. I would have done it where it probably took place a few years after. I actually like the Halloween 4 where she's got a little kid. So I think that probably would have played into it. So it probably would be this weird blend of part 4, H2O even, and 2018. Maybe she went into hiding or something and he found her. I don't know. Gosh, it's such a hard one to do. But here's the other thing is it would have taken place in Haddonfield. The one thing I did not like about H2O is it did not take place in Haddonfield. I don't also know, I don't think I would go too far into his backstory. I don't like again, the Thorn thing, the whole, I mean, don't explain it. He's pure evil. Like, you can't explain this, you know? So I think he would have had to have come back. And I think at this point, he would have gone after Lori still because he didn't get to kill her the first time around. So he would go after specifically her. He would almost have a revenge vendetta against her. I think I'd probably play that angle. Whereas in 2018, you know, that wasn't the case. I probably would have said, no, he wants to kill her. Now he's fixated, right? And that's where it would have gone.
All right. I'm glad you brought up the backstory. Let's get into the remake a little bit. Let's talk about Rob Zombies. What are your thoughts on this one?
So, you know, people always complain about, you know, oh, they're ruining my childhood and all this stuff. I've never taken that stance. Like, I think probably when I first heard they were going to remake it, there was a little bit of a pang of, oh, why are you touching my movie? Because this was 2007. So it was before, I mean, it was sort of in the middle, but sort of before. I mean, we didn't have the Friday the 13th remake. We didn't have the Nightmare on Elm Street one. We didn't have the My Bloody Valentine. It felt like it was before the real string of constant remakes. Maybe I'm...
And I think this one has to do with that because it was such a success. I mean, it's still the Labor Day King, you know, that weekend.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, and again, I could be misremembering the other ones that came out around that time, but even Evil Dead didn't come out to like 2013 or something. So I think it was early on in that sort of remake cycle. But it was still a thing. I mean, they had done Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So there was a precedent there. And I listen, I love House, Thousand Corpses. I love Rob Zombie's films, but I was a little like, okay, this could be really cool or it could be a little weird. But I was not a person that was just like, oh, screw that. But in terms of the actual movie, you know, I enjoy it for what it is. And it's just like, I look at Rob Zombie's films as like you going to McDonald's and saying, that was a really crappy hamburger. Well, what were you expecting?
You knew it.
Were you expecting like some like
gourmet burger?
Lamb burger with a reduction sauce. Like, you're expecting a Big Mac and that's what you got. And I like Big Macs. So when I saw a Rob Zombie film, I'm going to see a Big Mac on screen. And this is no offense to him at all. This is just an analogy. I'm going to like it. You know what I mean? Like, because I like it for what it is. But it is hard sometimes because, you know, I'm sure you've talked about this, but seeing the backstory with young Michael and how he grew up, and again, it's a very typical Rob, like, you know, white trash type of thing. There is a part of me that says, well, of course he was going to be a killer. And then having Dr. Loomis, which I love Malcolm McDowell, it's so depressing, those two movies, and they're so like again, just like any Rob Zombie movies, you don't like anybody in those movies. Nobody is redeeming, except for maybe Scout, you know, playing Lori. She's probably the only redeeming character in these movies. I mean, I feel like you just don't like anybody. So you already are put in this weird mood where you're just like, you want everybody to die, and you just sort of like just feel like, ugh, you know? So, and I honestly didn't like the arc with Loomis in the second one. I just thought he turned into a complete and total jerk.
Agreed.
And I know that was the point. I was just like, you know, I love Tyler Mane as Michael. I think he did a great job being brutal, you know. I love him in the Ken Foree fight in the bathroom. I thought that was amazing. I love the way the mask starts deteriorating. I'm glad, if I'm not mistaken, the theatrical cut did not have the rape scene, but the
director's cut has it. Yes.
And I'm glad. I like the theatrical cut better for that. Halloween 2, I don't crap on as much as other people do. Rob's part 2, because I watched the director's cut with his commentary, and it made me appreciate it a lot more. And there's some scenes in that movie that are when Annie gets killed and they show the footage of her
Yeah.
as a kid, and the music by John 5, it's giving me chills right now. That was really heavy.
It really is.
But I don't love the movie either. I don't hate it, but I understand his vision more. It's just a different take, you know? It's just different.
Yep, I agree. I don't hate it either, although I do have what some people consider a hot take that I now like to look at that first half of that little boy. I look at that as the backstory of Otis from the Firefly Clan because he's not growing into that Michael Myers.
I like that a lot, actually. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, he looks like he could be Otis at least. So
it's true. Yeah, he grew up to be some scrawny kid. He didn't grow up to be some 7-foot like crazy beast man.
And what are your thoughts on Halloween 2018?
I really enjoyed it. You know, I was, again, getting back to when they first announced it, I was on board. I was like, let's do it. And then it's like, oh my God, I'll never forget. We did as a group, as a company, we all went to go see It 2017 together. And I could feel my phone buzzing in my pocket while we were towards the end of the movie. And of course I wasn't checking it because I don't like do that during theater. I made sure it wasn't like my wife or something, but when we were done, we all kind of whipped out our phones and we're like, oh, they had just announced Jamie Lee Curtis was going to be in it. And I was like, this is amazing. And then of course, John Carpenter and Nick Castle and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh my God. So I was definitely, I don't want to say nervous because that's a weird thing to say, but like, I was definitely like, okay, what's this going to be like? Because we had the license for it, we actually got the first images of Michael and the script in February of 2018.
Oh, you got the script?
Yeah, I got.
Okay.
Yeah. So first we got this is a real kind of quick story. Basically, the studio, we had signed a deal and everything, and they said they were going to have some assets, and I didn't know when, and whatever. And then I missed an email for some reason. It either didn't hit my inbox or something, but I went to reply to somebody or someone came in, some email came in and that thread was below it. And I read it and it was literally, and I'd missed, it was like a week later, you know, we can send you the images in the script. And I'm like, what? So, I mean, obviously, you know, you have to sign a non-disclosure agreement, right, you know, and things like that. So I had everybody come up to my office and we opened up the images together and saw Michael for the first time, what he was going to look like. And then no one, I allowed, like, if people in the office wanted to read the script, I mean, we were all, you know, trust everybody. It's not like I was just handing it out, but I mean, if, you know, if you wanted to read it, you could. But Chris, our production manager, and I were the only ones that read it because I think everybody else really wanted to be surprised. And I mean, I took it home and read it that night. And we came in the next day, we both looked at each other and we're like, what'd you think? And we both had the same feelings. We loved it, but there were things about it that we did not like. And they actually went to, they ended up correcting a lot of that stuff in the reshoots that summer because there were preview screenings and stuff, right, and they got feedback and then they went in and redid it. And I'm friends with one of the producers and I was texting him and I was mentioning my thoughts. You know, this was after the reshoots. He goes, no, we kind of did this. And I'm like, oh my God, that's awesome. So when I saw the movie, the final product in the theater, as much as I knew the story, I also knew there was the last third of it had been altered a bit. Even though the outcome was the same, it had been changed. And I was so way more thrilled about it. And I'll be honest, my biggest issue with that whole movie, I loved it. Dr. Sartain, I did not like. And I did not like the fact that, you know, I didn't like the fact that he could, first of all, pick up Michael with one arm. I thought that was
yeah.
I didn't like, but I'll tell you what, aside from that, he plays way better in the film than he did in the script. In my mind, when I was reading, I was like, this feels too convoluted. And then in the movie, I was like, oh no, I buy this. The only thing I just didn't buy was him like hoisting up this freaking 6'5" dude, you know?
Right. Yeah.
I didn't buy that. But it's weird. Halloween 2018 is probably one of my most, I mean, I've seen all the other ones so many times, but I've rewatched that probably 5 or 6 times in the last couple of years. And I think that's a testament to how swift it moves, how well it's made, and how fun it is to watch. Like,
I agree on all those points.
And I'll tell you, Halloween Kills is going to be bonkers. It's going to be awesome. So I cannot wait.
I hate that we didn't get it last year.
I know. I mean, I get it. I get it.
I get it. I wasn't going to the theater anyway, so
Right.
I wasn't gonna go. So probably better that way. But man, I'm
Yeah.
hoping that we can get it this year.
Well, I mean, they said no matter what, it's coming out. So I guess if they have to do VOD, I think they might. I mean, I don't know for sure, but I just know they've made sort of a statement saying, regardless, I think Jason Blum said, it will be out. So maybe they'll do like the kind of like what we're doing with like Wonder Woman, it's in the theater and it's on VOD at the same time, or wait a week. Honestly, depending on the situation, I would love obviously to see it in the actual theater, but I'm perfectly happy watching it at home too, because that's fine. I just want to see it.
Yep. Agreed. I am ready for that one. All right, so let's give your final pitch for someone that's still on the fence. They don't want to watch Halloween. They don't like old 70s movies. Whatever their reasoning is that doesn't hold up, but still, they're saying they don't want to watch it. What's that final pitch to make them watch Halloween?
I think if you're any type of horror fan, it doesn't matter which ones you like. I think there's there are some must-sees that you have to watch in order to understand where the genre came from and how it got to where it is. So you can be a fan of newer movies and you think, oh, old movies suck because they're slow or whatever, whatever the case is. But I think it's very, if you're going to be a fan of anything, I think it's worth researching and investigating how what you like got to where it is, because there's a reason why movies are like they are today. Got to go backwards, and Halloween is absolutely one of these seminal films in the genre, among a plethora of others, of course, that should be seen, if anything, just as an academic sort of not experiment, but like just projects, you know what I mean? Just to understand, even if you don't like it, but look at where it came from. It's like if you're into music and you're into rock, well, go backwards a little bit. Why were those guys, what were they into? Oh, they were into blues. Oh, where did that come from? Oh, the Deep South. Like, go backward in time, and you'll be able to appreciate new movies more when you see where it came from. I saw Halloween, the original Halloween, the first time in the actual theater in 1998. So it was, I guess that was the
20-year anniversary.
20-year anniversary. And people were laughing, and I was pissed. I couldn't understand why they would be laughing at this movie, because it's my favorite movie of all time. This is the best movie ever. But I get it. And I don't people weren't laughing necessarily because they were mocking the film. It was like, wow, I'm not saying that you should laugh at the movie. I'm saying I get the angle of, this is so, in a sense, rudimentary versus what you see now. I mean, it's still effective as hell. I love the movie so much, and I don't think it's lost its effect. I mean, is it flawed? Of course it's flawed. There's a lot of flaws in it, but it's still very effective. But it's worth, as a case study, to sort of watch it and be like, wow. And to understand that didn't exist. Like, oh, her going across the street or going upstairs, whatever, that's a trope now. What are you doing that for? That's where these tropes came from. You have to understand the origins of these things. And that's one of that's, at least for the slasher genre, that's literally one of a handful of movies that sparked an entire subgenre,
I agree. I've seen people online say that about that movie, and I'm like, well, it wasn't a trope in 1978. You can't say that. You can't flaw it for that. It created the trope.
Exactly. You can't criticize a movie for based on today's standards. You can't do that. Exactly. And it's funny, my son's 11 and he watched Halloween for the first time 2 years ago. So he was like 9 years old when he saw it, and he loved it. And it's so funny. And he wasn't scared, and I didn't think he would be, but he loved that movie. And I'm glad he did. I'm glad he had an appreciation for it, because I mean, he loves it, the new It, and things like that. And that's fine, because that's, as much as I love it too, that's going to be the movie that he grows up with. But he still has the appreciation for movies like, I've shown him, earlier Friday the 13th and Night of the Living Dead, and he's seen Evil Dead 2. He hasn't seen the original Evil Dead, but Texas Chainsaw Massacre he's seen at this point. He actually kind of got bored by it, and I was like, and that was a good example. I said, Will, you need to watch this to understand
Right.
movies now. He liked it, but he was a little bored. I'm like, there's a lot of screaming and stuff. I'm like, but you have to understand, 1974, this was crazy. I mean, it's still crazy to me when I watch it, but it's like, it was a different time.
Right. All right. I think that's going to wrap this one up. Ben, why don't you tell everyone where they can find you online?
You can check us out at fright-rags.com. It's fright-rags.com. And anywhere on social, it's just one word, at Fright-Rags on Instagram, at Fright-Rags on Twitter, and of course, Facebook, just facebook.com/Fright-Rags. I think that's one word as well, no hyphen there, but our website is fright-rags.com.
All right. And as always, you can follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at ynfmoviepod, available wherever you get your podcast. Be sure to come back next week as I'll have a new guest and a new movie. Or actually, this time I'm going to have a double episode. So I'll be doing the remake with Miles from the Laughs and Wreck podcast for a double episode this Friday. So you guys come back for that to hear about the remake. You guys take care. I'll talk to you next time.
Nice. Thanks for having me.